Hello, the 666. Can I just call you that because to put the TH on it and all the rest, I know it seems too long. I was going to call you 666, but how about the 666? Anyway, thanks for the video reply. I like to be challenged. You're being very challenging. Great. This is very difficult to discuss this because basically language is set up to make these assumptions about the accuracy of the words. So the most important arguments are at a level higher than where we're dealing with this law of the excluded middle type of logic. But I'm trained in logic. I like logical domains where we can exclude the middle. I'm not saying we're going to throw that all out. I'm just saying that it's things like, first of all, everything is relative is a statement that's open to multiple interpretations. Not only that, but a relativist that actually accepts the term relative will have one definition now and perhaps another definition in the future because our concepts of relative is changing, so the appropriate interpretation is changing. It needs to be reevaluated and rechecked. You know, is there a domain? Now, I'm willing to just say everything's relative. Why? Because for humans, for cognitive creatures, in a physical material universe, it doesn't mean that in some other situation, in some context I don't know about, in some unknown context, right, they could be contradicted. It is always possible for something to be contradicted, and a big part of this is going to come down to the fact that because even as you narrow in interpretations of a term, you don't get down to a point-like interpretation. There's always a little wiggle room of interpretation for the word to even work. You know, if tall couldn't equate to various heights, then we'd have trouble adjusting what was tall in a particular domain. Tall among 10-year-olds, tall among 16-year-olds, tall among 50-year-olds. Okay. I think where we disagree the most is you were saying it doesn't matter how you quantify the domain. Of course it does, because as soon as you have to quantify over a domain, you have a domain. As soon as you have a domain, the truth is relative to that domain. That's where the necessity actually comes from. It's because to make a claim about something, you have to have a domain. There's been an idea that we could just have this universal domain filled with things we don't even know about. But I would say that that is not a well-ordered domain. You cannot actually make claims. Everything that I don't know about is relative. You notice I don't put it that way. Everything I've never been exposed to and can't possibly be, you know, there could be another universe where nothing is relative, as far as I know. You know, maybe somebody could show us if the math could work out. So it does matter. And yet, I'm not going to change when I have something that applies to all human cognition, I'm going to use the word everything in this skeptical sense, where no, I'm not quantifying over all of the unknowns. I'm quantifying in a subdomain that I can somehow identify, that I can make the definition. I don't get to use words where they're just words and there is no definition. There's not even an extension. You know, everything is all the stuff you don't know about. You can't. That's not how you enumerate something for making an absolute statement. Okay. So that's the angle of that argument. On the other hand, yeah, I do, you know, the law of the excluded middle itself only applies in certain very clean technical domains, right? Like the word love, you know, is a noun and a verb. It could be used in, you know, you can make A equals John and loves Sally and B equals Sally loves John, and right? There's no rule excluding those. And yet, you either love the person or you hate, or you don't love them. That doesn't really work because, you know, why? Because we have a fuzzy definition of love. On the other hand, we've been trying to define love a long time. For all we know, it's inherently fuzzy. And at the worst, if we say, well, there's a problem with the term love, fine. There's some terms that have problems and don't adhere to the law of the excluded middle. And so each and every term that we use, we would have to judge for that. We cannot just assume, you know, as you have. Plus, I make a one-step retreat immediately because I say, well, you know, by everything I'm talking about, you know, for humans. On the other hand, I don't even want to say for humans because I think everything is relative for dogs too, and for bacteria, and for any material bit of matter in the universe. So for material things, we understand them. Well, everything is pretty much synonymous with that. But I'm not going to say that everything includes all the unknowns, undiscovered things. No, I don't believe everything is relative is a statement that would be true in every single domain. I know there could be artificial domains, right, where it doesn't apply. And I believe in my materialism and natural philosophy, with this whole relativistic cone and the quantum universes, that there are probably whole universes that are cut off to me, either because, one, I'm so far away I'll never be able to interact with them, or two, there's some sort of physical, separation between us, some material separation, I should say, between, us and this other opportunity, like, the whole quantum possibility that, some other, the photon goes both ways, but I don't have access to that universe, or at least not after a little while, or whatever it is that changes that. So those possibilities are why, no, I'm not holding that as an absolute. I'm holding it as true by a relative term, meaning according to my perceptions, they lead to this idea that everything that I could say is relative because it comes through a subjective relative perceptions and so on and so forth. Is that true or not? Is it true according to my perceptions that the logical conclusion is everything is relative? Everything I'll ever have, everything, even thoughts I don't know about, because I know they'll be in a mind, and so I know that aspect, and that is the aspect that I use to draw that it's relative, the material embodied mind. Okay. So I know my claim to knowledge is that I believe that statement can be drawn from my experiences. And furthermore, my material experiences, the part of my experiences that you too could have, that the brain is physical, that it's a neurological process, that it takes time to process, that it has physical locations and things like this. Okay. That if you looked at your perceptions, you'd have the same facts to draw this, and you accept, and we discuss which logics to adopt. So we accept just an ordinary and loose, various kinds of logic that adhere to what we tend to think of as logic in the West. And all of the appearance of whether those logics appear like a good way to reason, all the appearances about the ways we reason and all the facts we're reasoning about, that you too would have to see that everything is relative. And so an argument about the language that, well, language is like math, and when you make a statement, it's either absolutely true or absolutely false. No. And in math, in logic, you can have fuzzy logic. You don't have to make everything binary truth value. Why would we insert that? I'm a relativist and a skeptic. I don't believe everything has this binary truth value. Everything is a mixture of gradients and colors, different metaphors, not true, false, 1, 0. I don't believe everything's like that. I believe we make things that way to make them simpler. For example, for a computer, so the computer can deal with it. But it's not, fundamental. So not every language, not every logic has to have that characteristic. So I could say everything is relative, and you could pretend, oh, well, that's 99% certain. Well, it's not really 99% certain. It defies the fuzzy, just gradient of certainty. It really does, because I'm saying, well, no, it follows logically from the definitions involved in there, and the fact that we're perceiving things in the subjective seat that we perceive from. Okay. And so it's true as long as 100% of the time within that domain where those assumptions hold. If you want to take me to another domain where, well, you're not a human, you're a being of pure energy, I don't know if those can exist. But if I was one and I did know, then maybe I could decide whether everything was relative in that frame of reference. Now, I'll admit, every frame of reference I can think of, every thought experiment, I can't imagine a thinking being that doesn't require some processing to do it. I can read, oh, what about a thinking being that doesn't require any fit? But to me, that's a metaphysics. That's incoherent for other reasons. But I can't totally dismiss it like it doesn't even exist as a possibility. And so even unlikely things like that, even unlikely things like that admit to the fact that it's not universal.